Welcome back, everyone, to the Taped Podcast, the filthiest podcast in the world. We are your hosts, myself, MickyT.
And me, Nostalgia.
And with us today, we have two guests, both of which have appeared on an episode before. We have CLJesse, aka CLJesse.
You know, I don't really like that you said that this is the filthiest podcast, because we are children of God, and filth implies sin, so, I didn't appreciate that very much.
I apologize. I will,
I apologize. Podcast over.
I will pay for my sins. And Pipe!
Jesus Christ, that was
So
aggressive.
Pipe! Pipe!
It had to be done.
Well, hello there, I suppose.
Every time Pipe's on an episode, we have to make sure the audio clips at least 10 times.
That's true, I'm a very screamy boy.
If 9 Inch Nails wasn't proof that he is a screamy boy, then we're going to have to find out today, because we are doing a Swans worst to best.
Woo!
He's gonna be
Hell
The
yeah.
band, not the animal.
Probably
I would
dumped
like
me
to-
by the end.
Aye. I'd like to formally apologize to anyone's eardrums right before the podcast. You might want to turn your volume down for this one.
Turn it up, coward.
Just mute the volume for the whole episode.
If you go deaf, then there won't be a soundtrack for you.
Facts.
Yeah.
Alright,
Definitely
I think...
blind to listen to it, though.
Alright. Yeah, we're just going to be focusing
We'll release
on...
this whole episode in Braille.
It's just going to be like whole text. Well, not text, but Braille. It's just going to be like pages and pages of Braille.
Just bumps.
Anyways, we're going to be focusing only on the studio albums. We're not going to be including any live albums or EPs. Just the 15 studio albums. And we're going to try our best not to make this 2 hours long. So let's just get right into it. My number 15 pick, what I consider Swans' worst album, is Greed.
I also picked Greed. What order? We should do Pipe first.
Yeah.
I picked Leaving Meaning.
I picked Leaving Meaning.
Ah.
Okay.
Wow.
Right?
Anyway.
Wowzers.
Doesn't offend me in any way, I don't care. Anyways.
Yeah,
Oh no, not Leaving Meaning! Said nobody ever.
We'll do the same order since
Yeah.
it works out.
Anyways, I think Greed is decent. I like the brooding and less harsh sound that was not present on albums like Cop and Filth. But unfortunately, I don't find like this album overly consistent. The songs have different aspects to them. Like some of them are more reliant on background vocalists as a bass and a piano-driven track at the beginning. Some songs drag on for way too long, feel a bit too monotonous to listen to, but it does have its standouts. I feel like the themes of the record, however, aren't the most unique observations, and they're pretty simple. It's literally on the cover. And there isn't really that many tracks that I would come back to, but it does have its standouts for sure. That's how I feel about Greed.
Yeah, while I don't think it's without its high points, I think it has way too many moments that are just very monotonous and not very interesting. And I think the album itself just does enough to set a dark and brooding atmosphere, but I don't think it does enough to really bring anything memorable or cutting edge or exciting to the table. And it's definitely a low point in the band's career for me artistically.
For me, for Leaving Meaning, I think that there are some really great highlights that I adore, but its overly long track list, the lack of impactful tracks, lack of personality, just monotonous, boring songs that go on for far too long. It just makes me wish that Michael Gira isn't losing his touch after all these years, because it really seems like this is a real low point for the band, in my opinion, and it just bores me silly. Plus, I have the liner notes on the vinyl, so that's neat.
Epic.
Okay, for Leaving Meaning, imagine if you took The Glowing Man and made it boring aside from 4 songs, and then you'd have Leaving Meaning. Like, it's Well, no, it's also like the folkified version of that album, which like I don't inherently have a problem with. It's just I wish they wouldn't just make a trilogy album that's 30 minutes shorter and way worse. It's not that interesting aside from like a couple tracks. It's not like a must listen, if I'm honest.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Best to worst tracks. My favorites from Greed are Nobody, Anything for You, and Fool. The worst track is Heaven.
My favorite tracks on Greed. Hold up, I'm looking at the wrong album. My favorite tracks on Greed are Fool, Stupid Child, Greed, Money is Flesh. My least favorites are Anything for You and Heaven.
My favorite tracks on Leaving Meaning are Sunfucker, It's Coming, It's Real, My Phantom Limb, What Is This, and my least favorite is Leaving Meaning.
My favorites on Leaving Meaning are The Hanging Man, Sunfucker, It's Coming, It's Real, and some new things. My least favorites are Annalene, Leaving Meaning, and The Nub.
Number 14, I chose Cop.
I chose Holy Money.
I also chose Holy Money.
Oh?
Ooh, my number 14 is... Oh my god, this title is super long. My father will guide me up the rope to the sky with a ladder. Did I get that right?
Yep.
I don't even know.
I guess we'll do the same order again, works out.
Yeah. Anyways, the sophomore album from Swans is essentially a sister album to Filth, both in terms of its cover, basically, and its musical styles. It has its standout moments, and I would say that it's just as, if not more, grimy than Filth, but I don't find it as up to caliber for a few reasons. Like, for one, I think that some tracks are a little bit too slowed down, a little bit too dreary for my liking, and a lot of it didn't really stand out to me all that much, or I didn't find it to be as consistently good as Filth. Like, this era of Swans is still good in my opinion. The instrumentals are still as grimy and filthy as they are. I love the deep, repetitive riffs, and the drums just fucking
filthy.
slap. And it has its standouts, but ultimately not all of it clicks with me that much. But I still think it's a good album.
Was that pun intentional?
What pun?
The filthy one?
No.
I'm sure it's not. That's probably the go-to way to describe early Swans.
Yes.
Bomb.
There's very little I can say about Holy Money because my opinions on this album are very similar to Greed. I think that it's slightly more interesting in its composition and soundscapes, but overall it does share a lot of the flaws I have with what's the album? Greed. I forgot what I was talking about. Yeah, it's just not very interesting. It does have a very dark and brooding and menacing atmosphere, as a lot of early Swans albums do, but it just does nothing to stand out even in that era.
I have to agree but also disagree to some degree, because for me, Holy Money is just a worse Greed. It has Coward on it, and that's like one of my favorite Swan songs of all time, but it's just a worse Greed. It's not as interesting as that album. I think that just reusing songs from that album kind of deafens its staying power for me, at least when compared to that album, and I just come back to it not a lot. So
Okay.
Fair
it's
enough.
not the money.
It's not holy either.
It's devil music. It's devil music. We have to end the podcast. We can't even talk about it.
Sinners.
We're children of God.
We're all
Okay, my
sinners.
problems with My Father Will Guide Me are very similar to my problems with Leaving Meaning, where there are a couple like really good songs, but the whole the album as a whole is just like it's fucking boring. It doesn't consistently keep your interest, and that bothers me about it.
That's fair.
Yep.
Sorry,
Let's have a counter of all
Trey.
the random noises.
It's Trey's favorite. I feel bad. He's gonna scream.
Trey likes bands is currently dying on the inside.
He
Shout outs to
probably
Trey
is.
though. Shout outs to Trey though.
True. I did
Alright.
hang out with him the other day. Trey's cool.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Alright, my favourite tracks from COP are Half-Life, Your Property, and COP. The worst track is Job.
My favorite tracks from Holy Money are A Hangin', A Screw, Holy Money, Money is Flesh 2, and my least favorite is Fool 2.
My favorite tracks from Holy Money are Coward and A Hanging, and my least favorite is Money is Flesh number 2.
My favorites from My Father Will Guide Me are No Words, No Thoughts, Jim, and Eden Prison, I Can Talk. And my least favorites are Reeling the Liars In and My Birth.
Alright, number 13. I chose The Burning World.
I chose My Father Will Guide Me Up a Rope to the Sky.
I chose Love of Life.
I chose Love of Life.
Ooh.
I thought I was going to be alone on that one. Okay.
We can
Okay,
once again
simp.
do the same order.
Yep.
You're the fucking simp. Shut the fuck up.
I'm
gonna
going first,
fucking
and you're
kick
going
your
second,
ass.
therefore, you are the simp. Anyway, continue.
I'm gonna fucking break you, little boy.
Alright, so...
See what I mean?
Alright, so The Burning World is a pretty popular pick for Swans' worst album, and Michael Gira himself hates this album, but honestly, it's overhated in my opinion. Like, people that complain that this is, like doesn't fit in with Swans' discography, like, are a bit, like, I don't know, those arguments are so dumb. Swans as a band don't fit in. Like, come on. I get that it's personal with Gira, and artists can feel however they want about their work, but I think this album is good. I like the pure neo-folk sound of this record. It's unique for Swans, and the soundscapes at times are actually quite beautiful. I think Michael's baritone vocals are great, and the Jarbo moments are awesome. Like, they match these, like, gorgeous instrumentals quite well, and the songwriting gets really dark, especially on the last track, which is essentially like a breakup tune, which is honestly just a funny thing to think about. But anyway, The Burning World is just a good album. It's overhated. Yeah.
Yeah. My Father Will Guide Me is... I do feel like this is a good album. Don't worry. You're allowed to make random sounds. That's part of the appeal of this podcast. Yeah. I want to... Wait, what time are we at? We're at 12:50. Let's look at the closed captions for this. See what happens.
Oh god.
Yeah, My Father Will Guide Me Up a Rope, I think, is a good album, but I think it's far from great, and given it's their first album in well over a decade, I kind of understand why it's not as good as definitely what will come after. It feels kind of like Swans dipping their toes back into this fresh new sound and these new ideas that would be explored fully on the next 3 albums. And while it does possess a lot of qualities that I do like about said 3 albums, I think it's just a bit too indecisive in itself. It's a bit like too unmemorable, and it just is a bit forgettable, especially in comparison to what would have come after in the 2010s. I do feel like this is their weakest album in that decade.
For Love of Life, for me... No, we're not doing that again. For Love of Life, for me, while there's some really great songs on that album, don't get me wrong, there's some amazing stuff on that. Compared to the albums that predated it and that came just after that album, it's the weakest in the, like, folk era of Swans for me. Plus, like, Michael Gira, I love the man. He's great. Love him. But he needs to cool it with the interludes on this album. There are so many, and they are needlessly boring for no reason. Why? There's like 3 songs on this thing, and most of them are interludes. Stop!
There are 3 songs. Interlude, and Amnesia.
I mean, true.
Yeah, I literally, like, I don't even want to go too in-depth because anything I'm going to say about this album is just what I'm going to say about White Light from the Mouth of Infinity, and this album is just slightly worse with more interludes. It has Amnesia on it. It's still good. It's just like, it's just that album, and it doesn't add much. Like, it doesn't benefit either album very much for being quote-unquote sister albums. It's just kind of like a needless addition, aside from the one really good song.
That's fair.
Yep.
Alright, my favourite tracks from The Burning World are Mona Lisa, Mother Earth, Jane Mary Cry One Tear, Can't Find My Way Home, Goddamn the Sun, and Saved. My least favourite track is The River That Runs with Love Won't Run Dry.
My favourite tracks on My Father Will Guide Me Up a Rope are No Words, No Thoughts, You Fucking People Make Me Sick, and Eden Prison, and my least favourite track is Little Mouth.
My favorites for Love of Life is Her, Love of Life, and She Cries for a Spider, not a spider. And my least favorite is all the goddamn interludes, Gira.
Don't listen to him, Mike. You're come on the podcast, please.
Oh, it's me, Michael J. Oh no, we're not doing that again.
No.
Not again.
We learned from our mistakes. We're not going to invite the artists we talk about anymore.
The Weremouse tore up the studio. Okay, but my favorites from Love of Life are Love of Life, The Golden Boy That Was Swallowed by the Sea, and Amnesia. And my least favorites are The Other Side of the World, The Sound of Freedom. I would like to state that I'm excluding interludes for my best and worsts, just so that I don't have an obvious way of answering.
Fair.
I do that too.
I try to do that.
I don't give a fuck.
If I can't pick any,
Sometimes an interlude's just too bad to know.
Yeah, like that's the only time I include it, or like if I feel bad putting like a songs on.
Yeah, exactly.
Fear inoculum, head ass. Alright, moving on to our number 12 picks, I chose Leaving Meaning.
I chose Love of Life.
I chose My Father Will Guide Me Up a Rope to the Sky.
Here's where all of you get mad. I chose White Light from the Mouth of Infinity.
Ah!
Boo.
Boo!
Boo.
Boo!
You
Angry
fucking
comment.
suck!
I gave it.
Thank you, Five.
Hey, it's a 7.
You
I
fucking
still
people
like it.
make me sick.
I gave it a 7.
Okay.
Okay.
Leaving Meaning.
Well, how come that didn't work for me when I gave fucking Good News for People Who Love Bad News a strong 8?
Because it's the best one.
Because you're wrong.
Look, anyways, enough about that. Leaving Meaning.
Modest Mouse, am I right, guys?
Shut up.
My opinion is fact.
The most recent Swans album, in my opinion, is good, but ultimately there isn't much about it that strikes me as anything new or challenging for the band. Like, this album has its glorious and gorgeous moments that are just impressive in scale, but I feel like those standout moments aren't all that prevalent throughout its entirety. Like, Michael's performances are very good in terms of their lyricism and their presence. Like, The Hanging Man has to be one of the most animated performances from Michael Gira. His presence on that song just matches the sinister instrumental. Can't speak. The sound of this album is reminiscent of like the post-rock... I can't fucking speak. The post-rock stuff that they are known for on albums like To Be Kind, and they also dabble in a lot of neo-folk. The production sounds great in my opinion. The progressions may leave a lot to be desired in my opinion, but they manage to stay relatively interesting sometimes. I can't help but feel like saying, why would I listen to this when I could listen to bigger and better projects that they've made previously? Like, yeah.
Yeah. Once again, I'll keep this brief because I don't know if there's a lot I can say about Love of Life without obviously comparing it to White Light, which is an album that I haven't talked about yet, and I'm going to keep my thoughts until we talk about that album. But I just think that this album just fails to capture the magic of White Light, and it just seems like it meanders more, and song after song sound like really similar and monotonous. The interludes are just pointless. They don't add anything. They also don't take away anything. They just add a longer runtime to the album, and it's completely pointless. I also don't really see the need for a sister album when it comes to White Light. It doesn't seem like the biggest like artistic conceptual statement from the band. So yeah, it's just a bit of a black sheep in the discography.
So for My Father Will Go Me. Well, I think it's a little more boring than what would come after it, and while I don't think it's as punchy or as interesting as those albums, and it is a very weak comeback album for them, if I'm being completely honest, I still think that this album has a lot of merit to it with its more accessible songwriting and track-focused direction. I just wish that it was a little more cohesive, or maybe a little bit more mind-altering as some of the later albums. But I still think that there's still quite a lot of songs that I regularly come back to. I love a lot of tracks on here, but when it hits its lows, it hits its lows hard.
All right. Let me go on defense now. Okay, I like this album. I don't have it at 12 out of 8. I like the very dense, gothic neo-folk elements, and I think they're very grand and interesting to listen to. It's just, as a whole, I think in comparison to some of their other projects, it doesn't hit me the same way. I don't have, like, the same, like, sort of euphoric reaction I would to, like, say, the other folk album that I have omitted, and I'm probably gonna be killed for putting it higher than these two, or like the same the same intensity that, say, like, Children of God has. Like, I just think their other albums hit a little harder. It's less at the fault of this record, if that makes sense.
That is fair. That is fair. My favorite.
Council forgives.
Yes. My favorite tracks off of Leaving Meaning are The Hanging Man, Aniline, and What Is This? My least favorite track is The Nub.
My favorite tracks on Love of Life are The Other Side of the World, Her, and God Loves America, and my least favorite track was Identity.
My favorite tracks from my were Jim, You Fucking People Make Me Sick, My Birth, and my least favorite was Inside Magdalene. Oh, how do you pronounce it? I don't know.
Magdalene.
Magdalene, yeah. My favorites from White Light are Better Than You, Power and Sacrifice, Love Will Save You, and my least favorites are You Know Nothing and Song for Dead Time.
Alright, moving on to our number 11 picks. I chose Holy Money.
I chose Cop.
I chose The Burning World.
I chose The Burning World too!
Yet again, we can do the same order.
Simping!
Yes.
You're the fucking simp. Shut the fuck up.
I was saying that to myself.
Oh.
Anyways.
There we go, now it's accurate.
Anyways, Holy Money. This is Greed 2, but a lot more interesting of a listen, and honestly, I think it's quite an overlooked project in Swans' discography. I think this one is way more direct and a lot more harsh and way more better sonically. It doesn't hold back on the brutality, and I think that it does what it wants to do with a lot more impact. The brooding nature of this whole thing is just so alluring. Like, I'd often come back to this one way more over Greed. It doesn't drag all that much in my opinion. I don't think there's much of a bad song. There are weaker tracks, but I think there are just too many standout tracks for me not to enjoy this. Wouldn't consider it Swan's best though, obviously, because it's in the bottom 5. Yeah, I think Holy Money is a bit underrated.
Cop, like a lot of the early albums, is very dark, very apocalyptic, very unsettling. But I think where it suffers for me... Oh, sorry, I just fucking punched my mic.
That's what happens when you talk about Cop.
Yeah, that's what happens when you talk about early Swans, yeah.
I fucking hate the police. Punch.
It suffers, I think, in its instrumentation and just overall song structures being a lot less immediate and in your face than they are on Filth. I think the instrumentation especially feels a bit uninspired at times. It feels a bit drawn out. And overall, I still think it's an album that's worth listening to, especially for its dark atmospheres. But I think that there's one album, I'll get to it soon, that just really takes the cake in terms of this early no-wave Swan style. And I don't really see myself ever wanting to listen to Cop over it.
The Burning World, for me, I don't think it's nowhere as bad as people make it out to be at all. I honestly think that it is one of the better folk albums in the band's discography. It's got some really wholesome compositions. The production's really sweet. Michael and Jabo are just really wholesome on this album. Even if they are a little depressed as per usual, I still think that they bring some really sweet songs to this album that I really appreciate, and it's one of the more like quote unquote positive sounding albums that the band's ever put out. So I think that's pretty cool. Like, even if it is an outlier in the band's discography, I still think it's pretty neat.
Swans are an outlier band.
Yeah.
That is true. Yes, I put this above the sister albums. No, I don't care. Send me your hate mail. This album is fucking gorgeous. Like, the soundscapes and just, like, the atmospherics of it are just so, like, beautiful in a way that I don't think the other two folk albums really achieve. And not only that, but it's like, as much as I love, like, myself some sad boy shit, like, I do appreciate the more positive sound to this album, and the more, like, pretty, happy feel it has, to most of it, anyways. I think it's quite underrated.
Yeah.
I also think it's quite underrated.
I think that's going to be a word every single person here is going to use when talking about it.
Anyways, my favourite tracks from Holy Money are Fool 2, Another You, Money's Flesh, and Coward. The worst track is A Hanging.
My favourite tracks on Cop were Whitehide, Clayman, Your Property, and Thug. No, Thug's my least favourite track, I mean.
Oh, that's me. I blacked out for a second. I'm sorry, I'm drunk. So my favorite tracks on here are Goddamn the Sun, See You No More, and Let It Come Down. And my least favorite is Can't Find My Way Home.
Is it
you
like
just
7
woke
a.m.?
up, yet you're already drinking.
I have a little needle into my veins that pours me Jim Beam.
Christ. Okay, my favorites are The River That Runs With Love Won't Run Dry. Nailed it.
There we go.
Let It Come Down, Mona Lisa, Mother Earth. And then my least favorites are Can't Find My Way Home and Save.
We are in the top 10. We've made it.
Oh god.
And at 27 minutes, this is a new record for me.
Anyways, my number 10 pick is Love of Life.
My number 10 pick is The Burning World.
My number 10 pick is Cop.
My number 10 pick, Don't Be Mad.
Oh god, oh fuck, oh god, oh fuck.
It's To Be Kind.
What the fuck? What?
No!
I'm not kidding.
Wait, what?
To be kind! To be fucking kind! What do you want?
Fuck you, Santana.
Wait, what? I'm just confused.
More like two.
I was like, oh, a hot take. She'll put like filth or something in 10th. What? Alright.
Shelly's gets bullied online. She made the hoes mad.
Nostalgia, could you go first?
Mickey's crying.
Look what you've done to your poor Irish boy.
Mick needs to take his meds now.
He's having a panic attack.
He's panicking. Anyway.
Right. I can pretty much... I don't have anything kind of new to add to the discussion about this album. I agree with everything Charlie said. It is the most accessible album, sure, but that doesn't mean that it's not as dark or as interesting or as just thought-provoking as any of the other albums. The instrumentation especially, I think, is just beautiful. I love Michael Gira's vocals on here. I love just how all the song structures come together very elegantly, and it's definitely the most like serene Swans album, which is a weird word to describe Swans, but I get why this is kind of a black sheep in the discography, especially with the whole label debacle. But it's a good album, and yeah, just it's a good album. I don't think it's I'm not going to be super like edgy and say it's one of their best, but I think it deserves more respect.
You good, Mickey?
Yeah.
Do you want it?
Yeah, I'll
you
go.
wanna
I'll
say
go.
your
I'll go. I'll go. I'll go.
Tears running down his eyes.
Love
He's
of
literally
life.
shaking.
Love of life. I'm not loving life right now, but love of life. It's the sequel to White Light from the Mouth of Infinity, and one that is I like some songs off it, but it feels unnecessary. Like it feels more like B-sides from White Light, if anything. Like the negatives I can say are the interludes are filler. A few of them tie the overarching themes a bit, but the rest of them are just there for the sake of being there. They just like don't have much to them, not much replayability. Most of the tracks I think are great on this album, and it has its incredible standouts, but some of the material is hit or miss for me. I feel like the ideas were executed way better on its predecessor. And yeah.
So Cop helped me get a girlfriend. So CLJesse, what are your thoughts on To Be Kind?
It's a great analysis.
I so too.
Okay, so, I need to defend this a bit. Okay, so, problem with this album is, okay, the grooves are great. Like, I fucking love, like, Screenshot, Little God in My Hands, etc. But that sort of, like, groovier, catchier style does not work for 2 fucking hours. Like, it gets tired after, like, 50 minutes. But it just drags that shit all the way to the fucking finish line. And big, like, gripe I have with this album is each of the trilogy have, like, their own, like, super long, like, 30-minute song or so. To Be Kind has the worst one of the 3. And that annoys me about it, because if you're gonna have a super, like, long, epic song, you're gonna want to keep it intriguing, but, like, Bring the Sun is, like, the most boring of the 3.
What?
You good, Mickey?
I think you've killed him.
I think I did.
He's
Still a
actually
7,
deceased.
though.
Yes,
Still a 7.
now.
I'm gonna have a fucking heart attack. Jesus fucking Christ. My favourite tracks from Love of Life are the title track, She Cries, God Loves America, and No Cure for the Lonely. The worst tracks are Identity and Amnesia.
My favorite tracks on The Burning World are The River That Runs With Love Won't Run Dry, Can't Find My Way Home, She's a Universal Emptiness, I Remember Who You Are, and God Damn the Sun. And my least favorite track was Jane Mary, Crying One Tear.
My favorite tracks from Cop, Thug, Clayman. My least favorite is Butcher.
My favorites from To Be Kind are Screenshot, Oxygen, and A Little God in My Hands. My least favorites are Bring the Sun and Nathali Neal.
What?
Alright. Moving on to our number 9 picks, I chose My Father Will Guide Me Up a Rope to the Sky.
I chose Leaving Meaning.
I chose Greed.
I chose Holy Money.
Wow.
Alright.
Above To Be Kind.
Yeah.
Lord help me.
You're gonna kill the man if you keep going like this.
Anyway.
Damn,
This
bitch,
album
you
was
live like this?
So anyways, this album was the band's, like, grand return after their 14-year hiatus. And the way that I see it is that this is a decent comeback album from them, but I couldn't help but feel like this was just more of a teaser or a taste of what is yet to come. For me, this album sounds like one of the more accessible in Swans' discography. It could be a starting point, if you will. I think the production on this album still has that experimental feel that you'd normally expect from Swans, while also incorporating a fair bit of accessible melody. I feel like it works most of the time, creating a pretty consistent album experience that a casual fan might get drawn into, and everything just sounds great as well, especially the drums and the guitars. It may lack the push that other Swans albums have, but it does what it intends to do, and it does it well for its short track list and runtime. I think Michael Gira did a solid job for his performances. His presence is always a good thing. He has some dark moments of lyricism, but ultimately it's not the best songwriting in the world. The track list is relatively short and it does have a dud in there, but it's pretty tight, pretty consistent. It delivers on some fine material. Some of my favourite Swans tracks are in this album. It's personally not one of my favourites from them, but it's certainly one that shouldn't be ignored, in my opinion.
Yeah, I chose Leaving Meaning, and where My Father Will Guide Me was kind of the band dipping their toes back into the sound that they would explore further in their 2010 trilogy. I feel like Leaving Meaning is kind of the band collecting some scraps and making a more bite-sized chunk of music that's largely similar to what was on those previous albums. And I think it's a very good album. I think it captures some of the magic of that 2010 era Swans. It just has a lot to live up to, and I just cannot see why I would ever listen to this over any of the albums in the trilogy. And it's just a bit more... How do I put this? I don't know how to put this in a more verbose and interesting way. It's just the most boring one of the three. It still has some amazing songs, like Sunfucker is one of the best Swan songs, and it's definitely easier to just sit down and listen to if you're looking for something more casual than like The Seer or To Be Kind, but it does have to live in the shadow of those albums, and it's generally not something I would pick up over any of those three.
For me, Greed is that no wave era of Swans at the most iconic. I'm not saying it's the best of the no wave era, but like when I think of the no wave era from Swans, I think of this album in particularly, not because it's the most recognizable or the most celebrated, but because of how diligent it is in creating an uncomfortable mood that I can't listen to some of these tracks without jiggling my knee a little bit because it gets so tense, but I think that works so well for the album. It creates such an uncomfortable mood. It creates such a claustrophobic and almost like it's being like tied up and then pushed into the ocean, and I think it works wonders for the type of mood it tries to create, and it has some amazing songs on here. So highly recommend if you want to put this on at a children's party.
Okay. Holy Money for me is weaker than Greed, but I do think it's a solid continuation of that sort of like more plodding, monotonous no wave sound. And I think like Jarbo's addition to both albums is really strong because she had hopped into the band at around Greed, and you can immediately tell what her style and her contribution is. And I really like that quality about both of these albums. This one in particular I do think is slightly weaker, but it also has a screw on it, which is one of my favorite Swan songs. So it's got that going for it.
Yeah.
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 Anyways, my favourite tracks from My Father Will Guide Me Up or Up to the Sky are You Fucking People Will Make Me Sick, My Birth and Jim. The worst track is Inside Madeline.
My favorite tracks on Leaving Meaning were The Hanging Man, Sunfucker, It's Coming, It's Real, What Is It? And my least favorite track was Cathedrals of Heaven.
My favorite tracks from Greed are Nobody, Stupid Child, Fool, and Heaven, and my least favorite is Greed.
My favorites from Holy Money are Money is Flesh 2, A Screw Holy Money, and Coward. My least favorites are You Need Me and Another You.
Alright. Moving on to our number 8 picks. I chose Filth.
I chose Children of God. It's an 8. Everything above this point is a strong 8.
Yes.
I don't
Okay,
feel
I'm
bad
back.
about To Be Kind anymore.
My 8th is also Filth.
Mine is Greed. Wow.
Alright. Anyways, Swan's debut album is something special. At first I just thought it was relatively good, but after more and more listens, I just couldn't help but feel drawn to the darkness and hellish nature of this album. Michael Gira is angry as fuck on this album, and he wants you to know it. He's just shouting and screaming his way through these visceral, noisy, thudding instrumentals. The riffs are repetitive, yet they sound so, like, fresh. They're just noisy as hell, harsh, abrasive, in your face, and visceral. The drums are incredible, thudding constantly, played with pure anger and just with deep, crunchy bass is so good. The bass go boom. For its 40-minute runtime, it packs so much punch. There's rarely a moment that bored me or anything like that. Like, this is the album I want to play when I want to fucking punch a wall, if I'm being real here. This is the album.
What did I pick again? Oh yeah, Children of God.
Professional
It's
podcast.
'cause my list is separate to my actual notes. Right. Yeah, I really love Children of God. I will start that off with
Better.
this. And it's definitely not as bad as putting To Be Kinda Tenth, so get off my case.
It is.
No, it is
No, it's
not.
not.
right,
no,
you're
it's
wrong.
not.
I'm right,
No, it's
you're
not.
wrong.
You
I'm
don't
right, you're
get
wrong.
to
I'm
make
right, you're wrong.
that statement.
Hose mad.
My
hose mad.
opinion
You do
is
not get to
objective
make that
fact.
statement.
My opinion
You are wrong.
is
You are
objective
wrong.
fact.
You are
Order,
very
order,
wrong.
Opinion
order
is-
in the court. Order in the court.
Bitch, fuck you, Judge. I do what I
Anytime-
fucking want.
Anytime Pipe shouts something, it sounds like a soundbite.
Yeah, that's good. This is a
right.
soundbite. Anyway.
Exactly, yeah. I love Children of God. And, Ambition and Swans are pretty much synonymous at this point. And Children of God was, in my eyes, the first, really ambitious album the group ever crafted. It's just larger than life. It's so methodical. It's so, unsettling, but in a more subtle way than a lot of the previous albums. And, I think there's a lot to love about this album. I like the more gothic direction the band started kind of going towards on this record. I love how the landscapes and soundscapes it creates with its music are both I cannot talk. What am I? Are both very serene but also very unsettling. And I think it's definitely a milestone in the band's career. It's definitely a turning point as well. And it's one of their better albums. It's hard to put this at 8, but there's just albums I prefer.
I don't know why I laughed. I think I blacked out.
Goo goo gaga.
I'm
I am
still-
a
Ho, 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 ho.
Don't call me baby. Speaking of babies,
like
filth.
baby.
So, I'm talking about filth, right? Yeah, I'm still drunk. It's this album. I don't want to seem like I'm overselling it, but this album kind of changed me when I first heard it. It's looking back on it now, it's not nearly as heavy. But when I first heard this, Jesus Christ, I was a mess, and I was sitting there just full panic mode the entire time. I was so fucking scared. And then after a couple of years of listening to this album, I can definitely say it's aggressive, it's rowdy, it's in your face. It's exactly what you'd want an album called Filth with that cover and this band to sound like, and in more, in my opinion. But it's way more fun than it is scary for me. Greed is scary. This is just a fun time for me. It's super catchy, super fun. The bass do go wow, and it's just a super good time.
Alright, as I had been saying with Holy Money, you can really tell when Jarbo hopped on the band, and her style of just more meditative, slow, thoughtful, compositions is really shining here. And I think that in combination with the more no-wave style the band had at the time makes Greed a really interesting album within the genre. Especially because a lot of, I'm not, a no-wave expert, but I've listened to a fair amount of it, and none of it sounds like this.
Mm-hmm.
Even if the album can get, a slightly boring at points, I still think it's a really good album, and it stands out a lot. And I really, I don't want to undermine the creativity that went into it. And also, it has Money's Flesh on it, so...
Anyways, my favorite tracks from Filth are Stay Here, Blackout, Power for Power, and Right Wrong. The worst track, in my opinion, is Big Strong Boss.
My favorite tracks on Children of God were New Mind, In My Garden, Like a Drug, Beautiful Child, Blackmail, Trust Me, Blind Love. My least favorite track is Blood and Honey.
For Filth, my favorite tracks are Blackout, Power for Power, Freak, Gang, Right Wrong, and my least favorite is Big Strong Boss.
Yeah!
My favorites on Greed are Anything for You, Nobody, Money is Flesh, and Stupid Child, and my least favorites are Fool and Heaven.
Moving on to our number 7 picks, I chose
top half, I think, also.
Yeah, we made it to the top half, yeah.
Wow.
My number 7
With
pick
only-
is White Light from the Mouth of Infinity.
My number 7 pick is also White Light from the Mouth of Infinity.
Pog.
Oh, my number 7 pick is White People from the Mouth of Infinity.
Mine is Cop.
What?
One
Anyways.
of these things is not like the others.
Anyways, White Light from the Mouth of Infinity. This album is
What?
basically a culmination of the folk orientated and gothic styles of their previous albums, and they just crank it up by 10. The production on this album is insane. The sound is so large and grand in scale. The soundscapes are so haunting yet beautiful, and they fit the tone of Michael's dark lyrics and baritone vocals. The Jarbode tracks on here are just absolutely gorgeous, no questions asked. They're easily some of the best on the album. Plus, for it being over an hour long, it never drags on for me. There's just so many great tracks on here that just make this thing just something so great. Yeah, that's all I have to say. It's just great. There's nothing else. There's nothing else I can really say.
When it comes to the full-blown gothic rock era of Swans, this is the album. It does have a fair few similarities to the predecessor, The Burning World, but I think the overall sound and approach on this album is a lot more grandiose, more meticulous and somber, especially instrumentally. And, this approach definitely leads to an album that's a lot more rewarding and entrancing to listen to than albums like The Burning World and definitely Love of Life. It's not my favourite in a discography, but I can see where all the praise this album gets come from.
I agree with both of y'all. It's one of the best records from that folk era of Swans. It's combining the energetic songwriting with thoughtful and emotional lyrics, with intermediate instrumentation. I just think it's a great album. Also, I'm basic, so I have to like this album.
Cop be like pew pew. Alright. Edgy joke aside, I mean, this is this big. I am an American. This is on my mind right now. But, this is a bit of a Filth 2 sort of situation. But the thing is, I love Filth, so I am perfectly fine with a slightly worse packaging of Filth. This thing still hits really hard and is really entertaining to listen to. And even if it doesn't reach the same highs as its predecessor, I still think it's a strong and very underrated album in their discography.
That's fair.
Facts.
Yeah.
Anyways, my favourite tracks from White Light from the Mouth of Infinity are When She Breathes, Song for Dead Time, We Will Survive, Failure, Miracle of Love, and Blind. My least favourite track is Song for the Sun.
My favourite tracks on White Light were Better Than You, Power and Sacrifice, You Know Nothing, Will We Survive, Love Will Save You, and When She Breathes, and my least favourite track was Failure.
My favorite tracks are Love Will Save You, Failure, Power and Sacrifice, Will We Survive, Miracle Love, Why Are We Alive, and my least favorite is Blind.
My favorites on Cop are Half-Life and Why Hide, and my least favorite is Thug.
Moving on to our number 6 picks. Every album I have from this point forward is a 9 and above. My number 6 is The Great Annihilator.
My number 6 is also The Great Annihilator.
Oh, god damn it. My number 6 is The Great Annihilator. What the fuck?
Well, now I have to dump you. Mine is Filth.
Anyways.
Is this just gonna keep happening where all of you have the same top 6 and then I'm like,
Well,
hey
let's see.
guys,
I
I'm
think
me.
it's possible.
I hope not.
Hey guys, I'm wrong.
CLJesse is The Burning World to our Swans discography. Anyways.
I'm the leaving meaning to your discography.
An afterthought.
An afterthought.
Oh my god.
It's alright, I'll just bully you guys for being normies.
It's a joke. It's a joke. It's a joke.
Anyways,
I'm just basic.
great. Anyways, the great and can we move on?
Pop's a normie pick.
No, it's not.
Stop capping.
Alright.
Okay.
What are we talking about?
The
Swans or
great.
something?
Can I? Yeah. The Great Annihilator. This album is just incredibly beautiful. Arguably one of Swans' most beautiful albums. Like, this is also a culmination of everything that Swans had done up to this point. It leaves you with a sense of, like, two different moods, like being incredibly dark, and some tracks just leave you just feeling very warm. Like, the riffs are so great, the atmospheres are incredible. It's just such an intense experience. Like, some of the songs on here just gave me goosebumps. I think that Jarbo and Michael's performances are just incredible. The lyricism on these tracks are just so descriptive and vivid, and it's just quite haunting. Like, genuinely just made me shiver down my spine. Some tracks are weaker than others, but these songs are just incredibly well structured, with interesting progressions. There's just so many tracks on here that just make this for me, and I think it's an essential for Swans.
The way I kind of see it, The Great Annihilator takes some aspects from like all of the previous Swans albums and, you know, puts them into a culmination of the band's identity up to that point, while still standing as a very unique and powerful entry in the band's discography, and kind of a taste of what's to come in terms of the next album. This album, I think, it's misanthropic, it's alien, it's cold, it's all of these themes alongside, you know, the very expansive and electric instrumentation, and all of that together paints some of the most unforgiving, dark and eerie atmospheres I've ever heard from any album, and it's surely a highlight.
You know, I like Grimes too much when you were saying misanthropic, and I thought you were going to talk about misanthropocene.
Yeah.
I was like, why is he bringing up Grimes?
Number
5 out of 10
6,
album.
Archangels.
Okay, I mean, I'm gonna let your clown take, like, sit there on the
No.
podcast for everyone.
What?
I mean, you did
Imagine
the
Swans
gesture
replaced Jarbo with
again,
Grimes.
So that's really the only fucking clown take.
Yeah,
here.
you want to know something? I have Misanthropocene rated higher than that album. Suck my dick.
Order!
Guys,
In
imagine an
court.
alternate universe where Grimes replaced Jarbo.
That would be fucking
Imagine that.
terrifying. That would be
The
terrifying.
Art Annihilator.
I feel like it would have similar effects. Anyway, I'll get my Great Annihilator out of the way. It's like, from here on out on the list, basically these albums are near perfection for me. Like, genuinely. So, I just agree with both of you on The Great Annihilator. Not only is it an extremely punchy album, but it's also one of Michael's and Jarbo's most personal songs. It's amazing. If you haven't listened to it already, and do that. It's amazing. It's extremely underrated in my opinion. Please listen to it a million times. It's great.
Yes.
Yes.
Phil be like, boo. No.
Feels
But,
like
okay.
boobs.
This might sound like a weird word to describe a Swans album, but I think it's probably like their most like badass album because it's so like loud and aggressive and pounding, and it's just like I throw it on and I just like have fun with it. It's such
You
a
just flex your
good
muscles.
and iconic no wave release that really like stirred up the scene when it dropped, and I just really fucking enjoy it. I love how abrasive it is and just how like unrelenting a lot of it is.
All right. My favorite tracks from The Great Annihilator are She Lives, Celebrity Lifestyle, Mother Father, Blood Promise, Mind Body Light Sound, Alcohol the Seed, Killing for Company, and Mother's Milk. The worst track is Telepathy.
Mine were exactly the same as yours.
Damn.
Oh. My
Irish
favorite tracks
minds
are...
think alike.
It's the drunkenness. My favorite tracks are I Am the Sun, Mother Father, Alcohol the Seed, She Lives, Killing for Company, The Great Annihilator. My least favorite is Out.
My favorites on Filth are Stay Here, Blackout, and my least favorite is Freak. Reason why I had so little on Cop and Filth is it's kind of hard to pick like individual like favorite tracks on that album for me. It's just kind of like an experience for both of them.
Fair.
Yeah, that's understandable.
Yeah, I don't want it to come off like I don't like most of the songs, but I put them that high. Like,
don't worry, that's what I'll have for the trilogy albums, so don't worry.
Yeah.
Anyways, in record time, for a lengthy discography like this, we're in the top 5.
whee!
We're actually unreal.
And I'm gonna get shit for having this at 5, so here we go.
My number 5 pick is The Glowing Man.
My number 5 pick is also The Glowing Man.
My number 5 pick is Children of God.
My number 5 pick is Soundtracks for the Blind.
Let's go! Let's go!
Okay, at least it's top 5. I'll give you that.
Yeah,
At least
it's
it's top
I
five.
was just expecting, because most people are like, oh, it's top 3, Charlize, and I'm
Yeah,
like,
I made a big deal by yelling "Let's go," but I was expecting a bigger reaction, so I just kind of looked silly. Moving on.
Let's go, she's wrong!
You don't embarrass yourself.
You are
this
the
time.
bigger reaction.
Oh, okay, here's something.
Ugh.
On my actual, like, Album of the Year ranked list where I include EPs, I have the self-titled Swans EP above this album. There we go. There's my edgy for the night.
Okay, okay.
No.
Anyways, The Glowing Man, the final album in the trilogy of albums that start with the Seer, and honestly, all I have to say is, what a fucking incredible way to end a trilogy. Like, this thing is transcendent, it's stunning, it's frightening, it's absolutely gorgeous. The instrumentation on here is just great. It's what I'd want a Swans album to be. But I can definitely hear an influence of different stuff. Like, there's definitely more of a jazz kind of vibe on some of these tracks, especially with a lot of the progressions and grooves worked into the instrumentation. And my god, it just sounds immaculate in its presentation. It stands out in the trilogy as much as it stands out in the trilogy as a much needed breather from the darkness of the Seer and the weirdness of To Be Kind. It's filled to the brim with like great textures and experimentation that create like a blissful and calming experience. Like, I complained the first time that this was a little too subdued, but giving its context within the trilogy, that just feels necessary to me. I think Michael maintains his strange aura and presence, which is as good as I want it to be, and I hold The Glowing Man in high regard as an essential.
Ooh. I agree, yeah. I think it's one of the most serene and beautiful and cathartic albums the band have ever made, and it to me sounds like the perfect resolution of an era of Swans, as it takes ideas from the other 2 albums in the trilogy and brings them together in like this very grandiose, atmospheric, and larger than life like aesthetic. And you know, it's probably the song. A lot of songs on here are probably some of the larger and most epic songs the band have ever released. And you know, the more subdued nature and the less, you know, primal, angry, twisted nature of this album does make it kind of a light at the end of the tunnel when it comes to the Swans trilogy and the 2010s. And yeah, it's an amazing album, and it's quite hard to believe that they could make 3 albums of this caliber in a row, but they did it. Really.
Yeah. Children of God, it's not their most, like, it's not the heaviest album they've ever made, it's not the most blistering, it's not the most overbearing, but it is one of the band's more upfront, blunt, and versatile albums. It's also one of the most critical and cynical albums, and my god, it's just such a good time. Like, every time I hear this, it feels like a dense, thick experience that I can't get, like, anywhere else. It's so good at delivering what it does, and I really enjoy it every time I spin it. It's a masterpiece.
Masterpiece.
Okay. Soundtracks. There's not much to say about this album that hasn't already been said a million times. Like, it's a grand, mind-bending, ambient piece that's really unique, and it influenced a lot of underground music, and it's a really visceral experience. and it hits you with a dense atmosphere like no other. My only like real complaint with it is that I feel like it really should have only been like an hour and a half, because like on that second leg it feels like it's just kind of dragging the vibe, and to the point where it starts being like completely ineffective by the end of the track listing for me, and that like brings it down the list quite a bit.
I mean, that's fair.
Right.
That's fair.
Okay.
Anyways, my favorite tracks from The Glowing Man are The Glowing Man, Cloud of Forgetting, People Like Us, and When Will I Return. My least favorite track is Finally Peace.
My favorite tracks on The Glowing Man were Cloud of Forgetting, Cloud of Unknowing, The World Looks Red, The World Looks Black, Frankie M, The Glowing Man, and my least favorite track, if I had to pick, was People Like Us.
My favorite tracks in Children of God are Blind Love, Beautiful Child, Sex God Sex, You're Not Real Girl, and New Mind. My least favorite is Children of God.
My favorites on soundtracks are Helpless Child, Yum Yap Killers, Volcano, Blood Section, and my least favorites are YRP and Fans Laminate.
Number 4. I chose Children of God.
I chose The Seer.
I chose The Seer.
Whoa.
I chose
Agreement.
To Be Kind.
We'll let Charlize go third, so we both talk about The Seer.
Alright.
Alright, so Children of God is a record that just gets better and better with every listen. This album's sound is just so distinct. Like, it's dark, it's tormented, it could be industrial at times, but on the other hand, it's just like very folky, like it's somber, melancholic. It has gothic and beautiful soundscapes. Like, this dark album is just incredible in terms of its production. The sound palettes and the textures are on a whole other level of incredible. Like, sometimes they'll be just demented and terrifying, and other times they'll just sound like so serene and like gorgeous at times. Like, they match what Michael and Jarboe are doing so well. The themes of like religion and the cult of personality are incredible. And I like how cynical this album is. Michael sounds like the god or a cult leader of some sort. Like, I think it's an incredible listen all the way through. At first, I just thought it was a great record, but like, it just hit me with more and more listens. It just cuts that deep, and it's just an incredible listen the whole way through. And if you haven't already, just do yourself a favor, listen to Children of God. It's incredible. You won't regret it.
Mm-hmm. Facts. It's me. Yeah. Hello.
Hello.
Remember how twice already I said that My Father Will Guide Me Up or Up into the Sky was the Swans kind of dipping their toes into making albums again in the 2010s? This is the Swans jumping into that pool and finally putting everything they have into making another completely massive, larger-than-life masterpiece, and boy do they succeed. The Seer is fucking incredible. It's a journey through some of the most rugged and twisted soundscapes I've ever heard on any album, and it really represents a more mature and methodical point in the band's career, and a point that would bring many more great albums to come. It's mesmerizing. It just captures you. Every single moment is beautiful. It's amazing. It's just incredible. And the title track especially is just one of the greatest and most unsettling musical compositions I've ever got to experience. It's an absolute masterpiece. I love it. It's only fourth though.
Yeah, no,
I was gonna say Fat W, but then you said fourth.
Well,
okay. I'm not even a person who likes like ambient music that much, but the Seer is fucking incredible. I think it completely justifies its 2-hour runtime because of how dense and dark the atmospherics are, and but it's like subdued, but it always manages to keep your interest and to maintain being creative and enticing, which I think is something that To Be Kind struggled with because it was going for a more groovy, in-your-face style, whereas this album, I think, is the perfect way you are supposed to do an album of this length because of how, entrancing it is. If that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Fair enough.
Makes sense.
I'm not all evil.
To be kind. It's To Be Kind. In my opinion, it's one of the more fun albums in the band's discography. Like, I keep coming back to this one purely because of just how much fun I have when I listen to it. It's one of the band's most accessible. It's one of the band's most funky. Does it necessarily justify its 2-hour runtime? At times, no. But I still think that it is an incredible experience, for sure. Like, I would still hunker down and listen to this for the 2 hours, rather than listening to those Ghost 9 Inch Nails albums. I'm not talking about those again. But, it's fun, it's energetic, it has some of the best songs that they've ever made, and I just think it's a good time. And even though it's my least favorite of the trilogy, I still think it's a good time.
I mean, it is better than the Ghost albums.
Shut up, Beavis. Anyways.
Hey, I'm in the same boat he is, so...
Anyways, my favourites from Children of God are In My Garden, Our Love Lies, Sex God Sex, Like a Drug, Beautiful Child, and Blind Love. I have no least favourites.
My favourites on the Seer were Lunacy, Mother of the World, The Seer, 93 Avenue Blues, Avatar, A Piece of the Sky, and I do not have any least favourites.
My favorites on the Seer are Lunacy, Mother of the World, The Seer Returns, and Song for a Warrior, and my least favorites are The Wolf and 93 Avenue Blues.
My favorites on To Be Kind, Oxygen, Just a Little Boy, Little God in My Hands, Bring the Sun / and She Loves Us, and my least favorite is Some Things We Do.
Hell yeah.
Top 3.
Hell yeah.
We've made it. Now, this was incredibly tough for me to place these because
I agree.
I practically have these on a same level. But my definitive one has been chosen, and my number 3 pick is Soundtracks for the Blind.
Base.
My number 3 pick, which is pretty much tied with my number 2 pick, but my number 3 pick is Filth.
My number 3 pick, which is basically tied with my number 1, 2, 3, and 4 pick, is The Glowing Man.
My number 3 pick, my favorite of the trilogy, is The Glowing Man. I'm used to being wrong. Wow!
Anyways.
We can do the same order.
Yeah. Anyways, Soundtracks for the Blind. This record is an absolute behemoth in Swans' discography. With its length being as long as it is, it's surprising that it kept me listening consistently and constantly without any distraction or my mind wandering. I was glued to this thing. It genuinely terrified me, left me with a sense of like, what the fuck am I even listening to? And why the fuck am I even listening to this? The production on this thing is just incredible. It's absolutely gorgeous. The passages, the progressions, the ambient soundscapes that Michael and Jarboe explore throughout this whole thing are just incredible. So tension building, daunting, jarring, frightening, but also quite beautiful. The snippets and samples used are quite dark and disturbing at times, and the lyrics on this album are written so well. Despite its length, it leaves me with so much rewarding material. It would make me go back to it with zero hesitation, go straight into it. Some tracks are a little bit weaker, but I love this album majority of the time. I think it is incredible.
Yeah, I love Filth. I think it's absolutely underrated. It's easily one of the darkest, most aggressive, and, excuse the pun, filthiest albums I've ever heard in my life.
Oh, he did it!
I did it. Oh boy, I did it.
There. You wait there. Oh, it's me, Michael Giro, and I'd like to say I appreciate that pun. Remember when I said I wasn't gonna do it? Too bad, I'm already here. It's me, Michael. I'm
Take
sad.
off your cowboy hat inside, that's rude.
Yeah.
I'm not wearing a fucking cowboy hat. You fucking people make me sad.
Alright, continue on. Continue on nostalgia.
Yeah. Oh, that's all.
Yeehaw! Okay.
I'm joking. The instrumentation is rugged. It's apocalyptic. It's so violent. Michael's performances throughout are some of the most intense, frightening, and psychotic vocal performances I've ever heard on any album ever.
I know, right?
And yeah, good job, man. And you know, I love me some dark music, and Filth is one of the darkest albums I've ever listened to in my life, and just completely blows me away how this thing came out in the early 80s. It's amazing. It's a masterpiece, and fuck, I love it.
That's a fat W.
Yeah.
Pretty bass, bro.
Based like
Fucking
the
hate the
instrument.
Burning World, though. That one sucks.
Oh,
Based
that one
go
poo
boom.
poo pee pee. That one too
Based.
positive. I don't like it when they are happy.
I don't like it when the record label drop me.
They dropped me. Fuck this album.
They dropped me on my head and now I have a boo boo. The glowing man. Saying the glowing man is meditative is basically saying the sky is blue or the grass is green. But yeah, it is that. It's way more thoughtful. It's way more subtle than any of the other records that they have done, even up to like this point in the discography. In my opinion, the glowing man is the definition of a term I've coined over the years called peak music, where you feel like you're ascending the entire time you're listening to a song or an album, and this is the definition of that to a hard-boiled degree. It's so good at delivering that overbearing yet methodical yet spiritual vibe that I have. It's one of the most unique in their entire discography, and it has some of their greatest songs that they've ever made. It's just a triumph. It's absolutely incredible.
The Glowing Man is like one of the most like gorgeous albums I've ever listened to. It's the dreamier vibe it has is so expansive, and it sounds so imaginative in a way that I don't think the other two in the trilogy really are. And similarly to the Seer, I think this sort of sound lends itself super well to the 2-hour length, and I think even greatly benefits from it because you do feel like you're sort of in like a dream or hallucination when you listen to it. It's so like visceral and enticing in a way that I don't like. Even the 2 albums I have above this one, like I don't even think those two hold a candle to how like sort of like atmospheric and dense this one is. And also it has their best song on it. Not one of their best songs, just their best song, period.
Alright then. Anyways, my favourite tracks from Soundtracks for the Blind are Helpless Child, The Beautiful Days, How They Suffer, Animus, Her Mouth is Filled with Honey, Empathy, Love You This Much, and The Final Sacrifice. My least favourite track is Blood Section.
My favourite tracks on Filth were Stay Here, Big Strong Boss, Blackout, Power for Power, Right Wrong, Weakling, and I definitely do not have a least favourite.
My favorites on The Glowing Man, The Glowing Man, which is also one of their best songs, People Like Us, Frankie M, Cloud of Forgetting, and my least favorite, even though it's a little controversial, is Cloud of Unknowing.
My favorites are Cloud of Forgetting, People Like Us, The Glowing Man, which is their best song, and then finally Peace. My least favorites are Frankie M and When I Return.
We're in the top two now.
Mm-hmm.
It's now or never. It's now or never.
Yeehaw!
Right.
You
While
guys
you were
have a little
explaining-
god in your hands right now.
It was impossible for me to pick between these two, so I just flipped a coin there just to pick. My number 2 pick is To Be Kind.
My number 2 pick is To Be Kind.
Woo!
My number 2
Pog.
pick is... Why is that Pog so cursed? So my number 2 pick is Soundtracks for the Blind.
Mine is Children of God.
Wow.
Wow.
Wow. Wow. It's wow.
Above surprised I'm not getting killed for putting it above soundtracks. And all of the
Okay,
trilogy.
nothing can shock me.
That's true. I think I kind of blew my load at like 10, so...
Yeah. Anyways,
Ew, you
speaking
blew
of
your
the,
load? Disgusting! God,
You can't be
why?
I
having
thought
that
you
during the
guys were
podcast.
children of God. I might leave if you guys keep this up.
speaking of your number 10 pick, yeah, To Be Kind. My opinion, if you had to pick a Swans album that just embodied like experimentation, visceral soundscapes, frightening and like weirdness, To Be Kind would be that album because this thing is just a fucking weird ass album. Like this album is another one of those Swans albums that makes you think, why the fuck am I even listening to this? Like the instrumentation on this album like has so many ways that you could describe it. Like it's hard hitting, it's in your face, it's intense, it's loud, it's tension building. At times it's also like gorgeous, beautiful, serene, just outright alluring. Like the grooves on this thing, I actually enjoy the groovier like kind of twist on the whole Swans formula, and I think it works well for its entirety. Like rarely does this album like convey instrumentation that gives me so much of an intense feeling than this one. Like the progressions are just stellar, the guitars are just incredible. I think Michael Gier's performances on this thing are just on a whole other level than anything he's ever done before. Like what the hell is he even doing on half these tracks? Like sometimes they just freak me the fuck out. Each track on this thing just hits me with like unprecedented amounts of gut-wrenchingly incredible content, and I'm so glad that this thing exists. I think it's great.
Yeah, there's one thing that comes to mind when I think of To Be Kind, and that's just insanity. This album is just absolute insanity. It feels like an unhinged cacophony of little tiny textures, instrumentals, and ideas that all build layer by layer, passage by passage, into some of the most insane, complex, and larger-than-life musical pieces that I've ever had the pleasure of experiencing. It's just such a journey, and it's just so cathartic and exciting for every single second of it, and I can definitely understand every single little bit of hype behind this album, because I'm here hyping it up too. I'm there for it. It's a fucking masterpiece.
Yeah. Soundtracks for the blind. It's fucking soundtracks for the blind. I don't think I need to say much, but I will. It's. I think that like when people say soundtracks for the blind is amazing, like, and a 10, most people only listen to it for one time because it is a big, thick, juicy boy. But even on repeated listens, it still consistently is a fun, weird-ass album that is one of the band's most experimental, while also being the band's most unique project. It's definitely in its own lane of what it wants to do and accomplish. It has so much to deliver. It has so much variation, different soundscapes. It's basically, if you put the entirety of the band's discography into one album, this is the like giant throbbing mess that you would get. And it's a weird trip, but it's a trip that I absolutely adore. It's got my favorite Swans song ever on it, so I love this thing to pieces.
Jesus album time. Okay.
Jesus. Sin
This is. I don't hear people point this out very much, but I do think this is a really, really unique album in their catalog because it's not attached to the no wave stuff that came before it, but it's also independent of the no wave era. Well, not no wave, neo folk era that came right after it. It's just its own like goth rock sort of like towering cacophonous listen, and I really like the more pounding, aggressive feel that it has, while also maintaining a more like dark post-punk sound to it. And I think that the sort of cult leader, religious extremist like concept behind it is perfectly reflected through the dark, like sort of mountainous instrumentals for a lot of these songs. And I think like some of their most iconic lines are on here, like fucking sex in your soul will damn you to hell and shit. Like that is iconic and memorable, and it opens the album. It's so bold in a way that I just love.
Virginity is sacred.
Facts,
Thank you,
though.
Anyways,
I hate sex.
MickyT is a virgin, confirmed.
Hell.
So, what are your favorite tracks?
I won't confirm nor
sex.
deny that. Anyway, my favorite tracks from
Gotcha,
To
buddy.
Be Kind. My favorite tracks from To Be Kind are Oxygen, Screenshot, She Loves Us, Just a Little Boy, A Little God in My Hands, and Bring the Sun. My least favorite track is Kirsten Supine.
My favorite tracks on To Be Kind are Just a Little Boy, A Little God in My Hands, Bring the Sun, She Loves Us, Oxygen, To Be Kind, and perhaps a bit of a normie pick, but my favorite Swan song, Screenshot. And my least favorite track, if I had to pick, was Some Things We Do.
My favorite songs on Soundtracks for the Blind. My favorite song, Swans song, The Sound, Helpless Child, Yerp, Animus, The Final Sacrifice, Volcano, and I Love You This Much. And my least favorite is Live Through Me.
Isn't The Sound that 1975 song? I think you're confusing
the fuck
my
up!
band. I think you're confusing my band with Radiohead.
Ugh.
No, you're confusing that band with Muse.
What's Muse? I only know Coldplay.
Coldplay. We have the same way.
We're going through a list of like the generic haha funny stuff to say, and we're going through everything. This is really good.
Alright.
You guys like
My
Radiohead?
favorite-
Listen to Origin of Symmetry.
Yeah.
Alright, my favorites on Children of God are Rap Music, Good Morning, Composition 3, and Red, White, and Blue. No, we're not talking about... Okay. That's the wrong album, Charlize. That's the wrong one.
Fuck up.
I mean, if you
Delete
think
this
about
episode.
it, Lil Darky and Swans are really similar, so...
Oh my fucking god. I'm gonna kill you.
Okay. My actual favorite tracks are New Line, Sex Gone Sex, Like a Drug, Shalala, Beautiful Child, Children of God, and Blackmail. And my least favorites are Our Love Lies and In My Garden.
Crying.
Dude, this is just fucking derailed in the minutes.
Well,
No,
no,
you know what
I'm
I'm
getting
thinking
cocky because we have a bunch of time left over, so I can just unload all of my shit posting at the end.
You know what?
All right.
I'm just thinking, like, during the sound, I'm just thinking, like, little Dougie's gonna come in and just like, bitch, I'm smoking gas in the chamber, like, and I'm like, crying.
Anyways,
Soundtracks for the drug addiction.
our number one picks.
Okay.
What we consider the best Swans album. My opinion, the best Swans album is The Seer.
White.
In my opinion, the best Swans album is the Five Nights at Freddy's 2 soundtrack.
Mine's WAP.
Thank you.
We did it. We did
Thank
it.
you.
Not an album, just the song WAP.
My real pick is Soundtracks for the Blind.
My top pick is The Swag.
Mine's The Great Annihilator, which is a collaboration album with Coldplay.
Shut the fuck
Hey, Pipe, go after Mick.
No, you go first. You go first. It'll be easier.
Oh, that works too. I don't know what to say about Soundtracks to the Blind, other than no matter how many incredible albums the band has under the belt, I just don't think anything compares to Soundtracks for the Blind for me. I think this nearly 2.5 hour monster of an album is just one of the most impressive achievements in music ever, in my eyes. I don't think there's any album that compares to it, even in their discography. I think just that there's just nothing out there that matches the intensity, the apocalyptic soundscapes, the psychotic vocals, the really just off and unsettling production, the gut-wrenching themes. Everything here, it's just completely unmatched in its ambition. It's hard for me to even sit down and listen to this thing like I usually would with an album, because it just takes you on such a strange and dark and twisted journey that it's more like an experience than a piece of music. and it's just incredible. Some of the ideas here are just so off kilter, just so genius. I just, if you're in the right mindset to listen to this, it's incredible. Just the fact that, you know, you can feel so alone, desolate, and scared while listening to the music. While listening to music is just an achievement in itself, and it's amazing. I also have a very fun memory of this album. Remember when we were listening to it for the first time in college, Mick?
Yeah.
And the moment Volcano came on and like the fucking electronic drums came in, we both looked at each other like, what the fuck are we listening to?
Yeah.
I still remember that.
That was incredible. That was a fucking awesome moment.
Yeah, and because that's probably my favorite song on the album, to be honest. It's also probably the most unsettling song for me. It's just so crazy.
About to throw Volcano on in the club.
Facts.
It just be
I do it.
True.
Screw all your WAPs. We need the Volcano.
So yeah, closing statement. This album is completely fucked up and I love it.
Yeah. Anyways, speaking of another album that's fucked up and that I love it, The Seer. The Seer is a fucking masterpiece in Swans' catalogue, and it's genuinely one of the most fucking terrifying albums I've ever heard. At first, this album wasn't really striking me as much with its first 3 tracks, but when the title track came in, I was just absolutely blown away by what I was hearing, because honestly, it just shook me right to my core with its progressions and its dark soundscapes. This album can use like all kinds of moods and sounds to create something that's just spectacular, making some terrifying yet serene soundscapes that just kept getting better and better with each track. Like, each track emphasizes emotion through the sound, whether that be an evil or eerie sound that makes you feel fear, or the serene and lush, calming sounds that make you like get a sense of brightness. It also shows that Swans are still as aggressive as they were from their early eras of their lifespan in their discography. And dude, like, 93 Avenue Blues is one of the most intimidating and straight up terrifying songs I've ever heard ever. Like, the sheer evil of this record is so daunting, yet it manages to not overpower you or put you off. And because of all of this, The Seer is my favorite Swans album.
I wholeheartedly agree. Not only, in my opinion, is it the best Swans album, it might be my favorite, like, straight up just rock albums of all time, because it's so overwhelmingly, like, intense and dark and just vitriolic that there is nothing that I have heard in my entire life that just sounds like this. Like, it feels medieval. It feels like, I make the joke that this isn't normal darkness, this is advanced darkness when I listen to this here, but it's true. It's in your face. It's like, it's exactly what the cover is. It's just like this snarling, biting dog of an album that just comes out of nowhere and just transforms into this gargantuan beast that just stomps you. It's amazing. I love it. It completely justifies its 2-hour runtime. It completely justifies its existence. It's just a fucking masterpiece of an album. I love it to pieces. I can't stop listening to it.
W.
Alright, anyways,
Totally.
In Rainbows is an album from Radiohead
Yeah.
that I think
Jesus
is
Christ.
easily better than any.
There we go.
We have time. I'm allowed to be.
Get to the Great Annihilator. Get to the Great Annihilator.
This album's a fucking 10, bro. It's a fucking 10.
Bruh.
Here's why. I think it is probably one of the best, if not the best, gothic, like, post-punk albums of all time. It's so dark and visceral. I keep using that word. Like, visceral. But it's like, it fits. It's atmospheric, it's dense, it's intense, not to rhyme. And I think that what puts it this one, I can't speak the English language, can I? But the reason why I would put this one above their others is it just the way it, like, hits me. I think the more, like, simple genre selection of, say, like, post-punk or, like, sort of goth music, but making it so, like, weird and off-putting, I think, is genius. And makes it sort of like surrogates its way into your brain, and then it takes you off guard with like its sort of like experimental moments. I can't fucking speak English.
It happens almost every episode, don't worry. It's a common thing
it's
in this podcast.
It's the Radiohead. It's the Radioheads. Get into my brain. That's why I like In Rainbows. Okay.
Wait, you done?
Yeah,
Shit.
because I'm like, if I keep trying to talk, I'm literally going to chew my tongue off.
Anyways, my favorite tracks from the Seer are the title track, my favorite Swan song of all time, 93 Avenue Blues, and Avatar, and I don't have any least favorite songs.
The Last Airbender. My favorite songs on soundtracks for the blind. There's a lot. Strap in. I Was a Prisoner in Your Skull, Helpless Child, The Beautiful Days, Volcano, Yum Yap Killers, All Lined Up, How They Suffer, Animus, The Sound, Minus Something, Empathy, I Love You This Much, The Final Sacrifice. I somehow, in this 2.5 hour album, just couldn't pick a least favourite. Genuinely.
Kind of base.
My favorites are I Am the Sun, Celebrity Lifestyle, which is my second favorite Swan song. Mother, Father, Where Does the Body End? Mind, Body, Light, Sound. This is why I didn't keep talking. And if... This is one of those albums where I can't pick, like, an actual least favorite, so I just picked In and Out.
And my favorites and least favorites from the Seer, Lost Powers, Big Climb, Planets, Arch Enemy, Violent Sun, and Bird Song, and
Jesus
my least
Christ.
my actual picks. I'm a meme lord, what can I say? Lunacy, the Seer, Lunacy, the Seer, Avatar, the Apostate, 93 Blues, yes, and my least favorite is The Wolf.
I would like to tack on at the end that for all of these albums, I do have, like, one overarching, like, good memory in each of them, because I actually did my first Swans binge with two of, like, my best friends. So, like, this... I have, like, a nice sentimental connection with all of them, even the ones I think are weaker.
So do we with Volcano.
We have it with Filth and Soundtracks for the Blind.
Actually, no. Soundtracks doesn't have it because I first heard that on my own. So, fuck you, Soundtracks. Worst album on the list.
Piece of shit. You put it all the way at number fucking 16. It's so bad.
Putting it at number 20.
Guys, we did it.
We did it. We ranked every Swans album, and it isn't even at 2 hours. Let's go!
It's shorter than most Swans albums.
Rankings was really bad. You guys like The Burning World. I, Michael Gira, hate The Burning World.
My name is Michael Gira.
Have you guys heard Leaving Meaning? I think that's my best album.
Guys, my name is Michael Gira. I cannot believe
you're an imposter. I'm Michael Gira.
No, I have the biggest...
It's your boy!
Fuck up, Chris Martin.
Guys, if you're still listening, the last few minutes of this will just be noises.
Michael
the meat and bones of the podcast is over.
Let's outro.
I just want to say, I can't see.
Hey, it's me, Isaac Brock. I'm back, guys.
Can I make it? Can I make?
Fuck out.
Before the shit posting continues, I just want to make a couple of announcements. I want to announce what we're doing for the next 2 episodes. The next one is going to be our normal recaps episodes. And the next worst to best that we're going to be doing is Deftones.
Wait, did we not swap that with the next?
Huh?
I thought we swapped that with the next one to give us more time. Because of their new album.
Yeah, but we'll have time anyway.
Alright, okay.
Well, what about... Are we going to be recording before Ohms comes out?
No.
Does that not come out on the 25th?
Yeah, we're recording it the first week of October.
Oh, okay, I was confused from... Oh, yeah, because of the recap. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Live planning segment.
Anyways, thanks for checking out today's episode of the Taped Podcast. Links in the description to our necessary shit, like our album of the year and rate your music, Charlize and Pipe's album of the year,
Or
and
9gag.
or nine.
Link to Michael Giro's social media will be down there too.
And I'm Isaac Brock. How are all of you
Oh, no,
today?
no.
I'm a weremouse. I
I'm
don't know
guys-
if
Trent
you...
Reznor. I will fuck you with my fist.
Thank you for watching.
Thanks.
Peace.
Bye,
See ya.
guys. Hope you have a nice
Like and
day.
subscribe. Ah!
I hate you all.
You fucking people make me sick. I stop recording. How is it that the Nine Inch Nails podcast was longer than this one? Yeah, he does a lot. It's okay. Yeah. Oh yeah, I contributed a lot to that. I was just more tired this one, so I didn't react a whole bunch, but I feel like if I had like an energy drink, then I would have reacted more to the To Be Kind pick, but eh. You have me saying Trent Reznor fist fuck me. Hmm.